Ready? Chapter 25 Fire in the Hall. Keon was right in the line of fire. Aino had to think fast. She swung around him, landing her own body in front of him instead. The shotgun went off, barely missing Arvid, pumping Aino's body full with lead pellets. She cried out in pain before she sunk down on her knees in front of Keon. He looked at her in horror. Arvid threw himself into the room before the soldier could fire another round. He grabbed the shotgun from her and started beating her head with it until there eventually was nothing left to beat. Keon sunk down in front of Aino. Not again. He touched her face with his hand as she looked up at him. Happy birthday. He looked back at her with a saddened expression. This wasn't the birthday gift I wished for. She gave him a weak smile. I'll be okay once the pellets are removed. Right now, however, it hurts quite a bit. Edda approached them and helped Keon lift Aino up on his back again. They walked into the open room and saw Arvid sitting on the floor, on top of the dead soldier, holding the shotgun. They looked around the room. In one corner stood a lone, terrified soldier. In the other, Ilsa sat tied up, with a noose tightly wrapped around her neck. She was so badly beaten that her face had swelled up to the point where she couldn't see. She had cuts everywhere, bearing clear signs of torture. Give the gun to me. Edda reached out her hand towards Arvid. He gave it to her as she turned to the soldier in the corner. He was now holding an axe in front of him. It was clear as day that it was Ilsa's second axe, as it looked the exact same as the other one. Edda walked up to him and bent the axe out of his hand, almost crushing it in the process. She cocked the gun and pressed it into the soldier's mouth as she fired it, splattering blood and brain matter all over the wall behind them. She smashed the shotgun over her knee, sending the different parts of it flying across the room, making sure it could never be used again. She dropped the last of the remnants of it on the floor. Help me untie her! Arvid was kneeling down before Ilsa, trying to free her from the ropes. Edda joined in. They worked in silence until they had freed her. I'll carry her. You take her axes. You seemed pretty skilled with them before, Edda said to Arvid. Yeah, I still prefer my knives though, he answered her. Edda? Ilsa's voice was weak, but she was still conscious. Arvid looked at her in surprise. She couldn't see. How did she know it was Edda? Besides the battlefield, he couldn't remember a single time he and Edda had met Ilsa before, even less talked to her. How could she recognize the voice of a person she had never talked to? My creator! Ilsa turned her head towards Aino. She couldn't see her, but she could feel her. The creator had gone on a rescue mission in order to bring her back. She could even feel the pain Aino was feeling. Unacceptable. The officers were all supposed to guard their creator with their life, not use her as a weapon or shield. This was a direct violation of Ayla's order. There should have been no rescue mission in the first place. She was just one general. Her life was expendable, but their creator's was not. I am Brigadier General Ilsa Vikingsdotter. I would bow, but I'm having some problems standing right now, she said, laying almost immobile on Edda's back. Did the yellow wolves hurt you? They shot me in the back. I'll be fine once we're back, Aino answered calmly. They shot me too. I don't know where they got that shotgun from, but it took me by surprise. I just axed down about 30 of them, then bam! Shot me in the back, the cowards, she said as her voice died out. Did she faint? Edda asked Arvid. He looked at Ilsa. I'm not sure, it's hard to tell. A loud snore interrupted his response. He let out a little laugh. Nope, she just fell asleep. Ossian had taken over the night shift together with another doctor from Ayla's blood army. The other officer, however, was currently sleeping instead of keeping watch over anything. She was laying down on one of the logs around the fire with drool dripping down from her open mouth. Ossian looked at her in disapproval. This wasn't the first time he had been on a night shift with an officer from Ayla's blood army who had fallen asleep. What was it with them and their inability to keep awake during their assigned night shift? If it had happened in his army, he would have been scolded to no end by a higher ranked officer. He reached over and poked the sleeping doctor with a stick. "A beer, please," the officer said as she sat up, clearly having been awoken in the middle of a dream. She looked at Ossian with a bewildered expression. The pull was back. Their creator was coming. Both of the officers stood up to meet the returning group. As the sun was starting to rise over the horizon, the doctors went to work. Ossian looked at Aino's back. The wounds didn't look like any wound he had seen before. It was like the skin and flesh had moved to make room for the pellets lodged into her back. As Ossian started to remove the lead pieces one by one, the skin closed up after them, leaving not as much as a mark, making it look like there had been no injury to start with. It was clear that their creator felt pain while the pellets were still in her. Yet after they were all removed, so was the pain as well, and her body had no mark to prove that she had ever felt it. Aino looked over at Yrsa. The swelling had gone down in her face, and you could finally see her features more clearly. The Brigadier General looked back at her and made a small bow. "You're healing crazy fast, Yrsa," her doctor commented. "And you are drooling, Captain Nanna," she commented back. "Meh, I always drool when I sleep. My mouth opens too wide when my muscles relax," she said with a shrug. "Are you telling me that you were sleeping on your shift?" Yrsa's eyes narrowed as she looked closer at Nanna. "Heh, no." The drooling captain tried her best not to look guilty. The rest of the officers at the camp were starting to wake up. Joa came up to the Brigadier General and looked at her with sparkling eyes. "I knew you'd come back in one piece." He bumped her shoulder with his fist. "Although I must say, I'm disappointed in you. You only took out 30 of them. The warrior Yrsa I remember from back in the day would have taken them all out with ease." She looked up at him. "They caught me off guard when they shot me in the back. Seconds after that they had a noose around my neck and spears pointed at me from all directions. They knew exactly what they were doing. It was all planned out." "Sounds like you're losing your touch," he said and shook his head. She let out a little laugh. "Losing my touch, huh? I assure you, I'm still the same old Yrsa." "By the way, did you greenlight this rescue mission?" Yrsa asked Joa. "Arvid and Edda are not my generals. I can't tell them what to do," he answered. "But I am your general, and I know you. This was your idea, wasn't it?" She kept her eyes on him. "Our creator volunteered for it. I even wanted to go with her, but she said no. What was I to do? Stop her?" he said in response. "Yes, that's exactly what you should have done," Yrsa answered. "Ayla won't be happy when she hears about this." "Are you going to tell her?" he asked her. "No, but I'm sure others will. It's quite the story with our creator being shot and everything," she answered. "Aino is hurt?" Joa said in a worried voice. "She's fine now. She must have some magic healing powers or something. Even I am healing at a rapid pace. I wonder if it has something to do with her being so close. Maybe we get even stronger with her around." Yrsa didn't get a reply as Joa was already marching over to Arvid and Edda. "We are supposed to guard our creator with our life. How could you allow her to get hurt?" Joa said angrily as he looked at them. "Hey, it wasn't our fault. How were we supposed to know they had a shotgun?" "I just instinctively threw myself out of the way," Arvid answered. "Aha, so it was you," Joa replied as he pointed accusingly at Arvid. "Well, she wasn't in the line of fire. Keon was." "How could I have known that she would throw herself in front of him?" Arvid snapped back. Joa looked at him in surprise. Aino had acted as Keon's shield yet again. Why? What did their creator see in that man? Colonel Tyr, who had been sleeping in the forest, peeked out behind the trees at Yrsa. This was his chance. She was alone now. He looked down at his hand. He was still holding on to the blackberries he had picked before. He had kept them safe all night. The colonel lifted his head just to realize that the brigadier general had already noticed him. A few awkward seconds of silence passed as the two officers just stared at each other. Teal realized he had to be looking rather odd to her. He had to say something to break the ice. "Blackberries!" he blurted out. "Blackberries?" she repeated questioningly. Teal nodded intensely. "Do you like blackberries?" Isa wrinkled her forehead. Yes, she said hesitantly, not quite sure what to think. A big smile formed on Teal's face as he stumbled out of the forest in excitement, right up to her. "I have blackberries for you," he said as he shoved them right under her nose. "Whatever things the yellow wolves did to you, I'm sure none of those were feeding you. So take them all." Teal grabbed her hand and poured all the blackberries onto it. Ilsa was trying her hardest to decode the situation. This was a first, even for her. She held the blackberries close to her face. They smelled normal. She took a small bite out of one of them. Nothing out of the ordinary when it came to taste either. So he wasn't trying to poison her. He just wanted to give her berries. What an interesting man. Her reputation as the warrior with the highest kill count had always garnered her fans among her own soldiers, but she hadn't realized that it even spanned beyond her own army. Until now. "What is your name and rank?" she asked him calmly. "Oh, I never introduced myself. My apologies. I'm Colonel Teal Bernadotte, in charge of the 4th Brigade," he answered her. "Thank you, Colonel Teal. I don't think I even realized how hungry I was until now," she said as she started munching on the berries. "You're welcome," Teal said happily. Ilsa gazed after him as he walked off. That boyish hairstyle of his. She had seen it somewhere before. Had they previously met each other on the battlefield, and he had lived to tell the tale? Impressive, she said quietly to herself and smiled.